The story starts evolved with Kim Han-soo, who's a university scholar who research intentionally there. He has his very own circle of buddies who frequently mock him as he has by no means slept with any lady, but in his lifestyles that night time Jane Han-soo has plans together along with his buddies to visit a pool celebration, so he were given permission from his mother and father to do the organization study. As he has no cash for delivery, he secretly takes the keys to his father's taxi and makes a decision to take the taxi to attain the vacation spot. However, earlier than he begins evolved using, he turns off the Sprint digital digicam recording in order that his father can't discover that Hyun-soo took his taxi at night time without permission. He begins evolved using and reaches with inside the urban place wherein the taxi roof indicates that it is able to convey passengers. As a end result, a lady passenger receives with inside the vehicle while Hyun-soo is looking ahead to a purple sign. Kim Han-soo attempts to inform the lady that the taxi isn't always open for the trip. However, their lady is chronic in displaying that its miles open, so if Han-soo has to depart her for the vacation spot, the lady's call is Honga, and he or she is without a doubt quite, which flusters Han-soo a chunk, and he makes a decision to drop off her first, after which visit is celebration. Honga asks him to visit the Han River as though she desires to get away from her lifestyles. Hyun-soo first is going to a filling station to get a few gas, and there he stops the lady from smoking in his vehicle. However, simply one glare from the lady is sufficient to freeze Hyun-soo. She even makes him purchase her new cigarettes and liquids. There may be any other guy at the filling station who attempts to technique the lady with inside the vehicle. However, Han-soo comes simply then in order that guy backs off. After that, Kim Han-soo cancels his plan to visit the pool celebration and makes a decision to spend extra time with that lady. He walks alongside the Han River with this lady, and that they thieve ice cream from a road vendor simply to have a laugh. They spend a while on the Han River and then sooner or later go back to the lady's residence to live. Earlier than coming into the residence, Kim Han-soo by chance bumps into the rear seat of the automobile in the front of him. However, the proprietor would not pursue the problem and shall we him cross, announcing that it is now no longer a huge deal. Then the two input the residence, and the lady says that she became residing in China due to the fact her mom became ill 3 years ago. Now her mom has surpassed away and he or she is again right here. Additionally, a chum used to stay together along with her in that residence. However, she had a quarrel earlier than, and that they now no longer have touch with every different. Consequently, in this kind of massive residence she lives by myself. Then the two drink alcohol, take a few narcotics and play knife stabbing video games. Even though Kim Han-soo is proof against taking capsules and gambling such risky video games, the lady makes him do all this stuff. All through this, Kim Han-soo by accident stabs the female's hand. However, it appears to her lust as she begins evolved kissing. After that, even though Han-soo changed into looking to prevent the bleeding from her hand, she takes him upstairs to her bedroom, and that they percentage the maximum intimate moments of Kim Hyun-soo's lifestyles. After a nighttime of ardor, Kim Hyun-soo wakes up at the couch bare. He clothes to depart as it's far very overdue for him. However, while he is going in to mention bye to the female, he unearths that she is mendacity in a pool of blood. She has been killed brutally in her very own mattress. In a panic, Kim Hyun-soo runs far from the residence. However, due to his anxiety, he forgets to take the automobile key. While he turns again, he unearths that the door is locked now, so in a rush he breaks the glass and opens the door with one hand. After getting into the residence for his keys, he sees the knife from the sport at the desk. Wondering that the knife may want to be proof towards him, he is taking the knife to throw it away on the street. After that, he cleans the desk via way of means of losing the alcohol on it. That is additionally his try to wipe off the proof towards him. However, he's too naive at this task. Quickly after he is taking his taxi to depart, this behavior occurs to be visible via way of means of the neighbor next door. At the same time as on the street, Kim Han-soo by accident runs right into a checkpoint. Because of his anxiety, there a police officer tactics him, and seeing his anxiety, she takes his alcohol check. The police officer thinks that he has been riding the automobile after drinking alcohol. However, she cannot verify it because the alcohol meter's battery is lifeless. Suddenly she hears Su's fellow police document a case of personal intrusion right into a residence, and as she is close to the region of that residence she is requested to move and feature a glance as Han Su changed into. Nevertheless, in among them the police take him with them best to recognize that it's far the residence from which he has simply escaped on the crime scene. The neighbor who noticed Han Su earlier escaping the residence tells the police the whole lot, approximately the intruder. While the police take a look at the residence they locate the lifeless frame of Ms. Hong. Quickly the police automobiles reached the region. Consistent with the police research, the case changed into said at 4 a.m. The frame indicates it turned into killed at 2 a.m. The sufferer is 25 years antique with 12 to 13 stab wounds. The homicide weapon is a 15 cm fruit knife, and not anything is left on the scene. There aren't any fingerprints indicating the wrongdoer is carrying gloves. They think that the approach is pretty merciless and it is able to be a premeditated crime. Unexpectedly the police leader Park Sang-bam notices Han Su with inside the police car and orders his subordinates to take him to the police station for the alcohol check. While riding toward the police station the law enforcement officials speak approximately the homicide in the front of Han Su, so he asks them if their woman is lifeless, to which the law enforcement officials verify that the woman is lifeless after having 13 stabbed wounds lower back. At the crime scene the person is Gift, whose vehicle turned into hit with the aid of using the taxi of Kim Han Su. He tells the police approximately the young good-looking boy who got here with the woman within inside the residence. On the police station Kim Han Su attempts more than one instances to escape from the however he stops each time he sees a person coming from the outside who can apprehend his identification. After a while the group chief returns to the police station he reveals Kim Han Su died and asks his subordinates to test if he's keeping tablets there. He additionally meets the witness, an aged guy who says that the intruder is lots like the boy's status in the front of them. Additionally the witness says that the assassin drove away with the aid of using taxi. This makes the police suspicious of Kim Han Su. Once they look for him they discover a fruit knife in his jacket, so he's arrested on their spot as a suspect. Kim Han Su maintains, pronouncing that he isn't the assassin and doesn't bear in mind whatever however the police leader would not accept as true with him. While his garments are taken off, police note that he has a number of blood and nail marks on his frame, so now there is powerful proof towards him, so he's locked up there. After a while a lawyer named Shin Junan occurs to return back to fulfill one in every of his customers. However he sees the harmless face of Han Su there and can't resist himself in asking approximately the problem of helpless Kim Han Su. After being attentive to his tale Shin Junan investigates the incident and comes to a decision to come to be Kim Han Su's protection. Legal professional Shin Junan explains to Kim Han Su that to any extent further they could name the lady's homicide that day, that night time, and he lines on bringing up that occasion to everybody once more, even their police or his personal dad and mom. He says that the police also are scuffling with the tale and thinking of matters as they apprehend for the duration of this era. Shin Junan claims that they may additionally make up their tale, and the chooses the most convincing one, that is the trial, so long as Kim Han Su remains silent. Shin Junan can first examine what tale the police are pushing, after which give you a higher one. In want of Kim Han Su on the crime scene, the group chief Park Sang-bum rushes to get extra proof. He began out on the kitchen desk wherein Kim Han Su attempted to wipe off the proof. Alongside the steps he sees bloody handprints at the partitions and stains on the handrails. Additionally, damaged vases clutter the stairwell. Park Sang-bum sees Kim Han Su and a gift on the crime scene and secretly takes it with him. In the meantime, on the police station there, witnesses file their statements. Those witnesses consist of the person whose vehicle changed into hit with the aid of using Han Su's vehicle, the police officer who arrested Kim Han Su on the street for consuming and using, and the law enforcement officials who took Han Su to the police station. After investigating they contacted the victim's own circle of relatives, which covered handiest his stepfather who changed into now no longer even inquisitive about his daughter, as he changed into now no longer prepared to speak to her whilst the police inform him that they need him for the identity of the useless frame. Then he involves the police station. All different family moved out of the residence after Miss Han's mom handed away from most cancers. He's handiest to stepfather without a blood relation. On the equal time Kim Han-soo's dad and mum go to the police station too. Group Chief Park Sang-bum allows them to take a seat down with inside the interrogation room collectively with Kim Han-soo, and he listens to their verbal exchange secretly. Kim Han-soo forgets his promise to Shin Jun and now no longer to display whatever to all and sundry, and opens his mouth in the front of his own circle of relatives, revealing all of the small information about the incident. Group Chief Park Sang-bum listens to all of it for the duration of the verbal exchange. Shin Jun-han returns to the police station after dealing with a lawsuit. He hears that Kim Han-soo changed into it inside the interrogation room and rushes to confront Park Sang-bum. Then he once more attempts to make Kim Han-soo apprehend how hard it were for him if he had continued revealing the info of the case so effortlessly to all and sundry. Then again Group Chief Park Sang-bum brings the case to the leader of the police, who implies that the majority the proof factors to a conviction. However, nonetheless they want a confession from the suspect with a view to make their paintings less difficult. He indicates to Park Sang-bum that this example will boost possibilities and it need to be dealt with well at night time. Park Sang-bum strategies Kim Han-soo and offers him their inhaler that he took from the crime scene. It is a superb gesture as a human, however a totally incorrect one as a police officer. Officer Park is doing this to speak to Kim Han-soo approximately the case and by hook or by crook persuade him over the confession. However, Kim Han-soo hesitantly succeeds in heading off speaking to the police officer. In the meantime, a reporter named Kung Jun seizes the threat to cowl the case, exposing all of the information which circuitously labels Kim Han-soo as a suspect. Day after today, earlier than heading to custody courtroom docket, Park Sang-bum meets with the prosecutor and to record the full case. Handiest Kim Han-soo, and normal university pupil without a previous report, makes him hesitate. Approximately the homicide prosecutor in he goes to show Kim Han-soo responsible in courtroom docket. After that, Park Sang-bum gives Kim Han-soo a blouse to put on, even though it makes the appearance of harmless Han-soo right into a rogue street boy. Sh Jun additionally steps in to greet them and suggests his dislike for the blouse. After some time in courtroom docket, tensions flare among the prosecutor and the defendant legal professional, and he argues that there's overwhelming proof pointing to this individual as a suspect and he or she needs to detain Kim Han-soo till in addition research. However, Shin Jun lines at the harmless preceding report of Kim Han-soo as a university pupil to keep away from detention. The very last trial ended in Kim Han-soo being detained in courtroom docket. Right here we examine that the reality is a war of testimonies and whoever controls the narrative wins. The trial in courtroom docket, it is now no longer simply the information that depend. Kim Han-soo, who's sentenced to custody, is sort of a white rabbit immediately into the jungle. Quickly he's transported to the jail, even though he does not understand all of the eyebrows and corners of the jail. The code named 7927 cannot believe what type of lifestyles he will lead subsequent. After coming into the detention center, Kim Han-soo lived in roommates the affected person with panic assaults at any time, who's additionally Kim Han-soo cellmate and some other cellmate exudes a literary environment. He explains all of the ecology to Kim Han-soo. There's a white tiger gang from Busan with inside the detention center. They used to conquer the different prisoners with none purpose, simply to exercise their monopoly with inside the middle some other underworld dawn whom they name Lion from the northern protectors. Likewise his call is Dude G, and he's a drug trafficker with inside the jail. When DG is in clinical take care of injections, it seems that he has colluded with the clinical group of workers privately and ask her to assist, delivery a small quantity of medicine for his personal use. This time the clinical group of workers helped him for the ultimate time quickly. She may be transferred to the Western Detention Center so she can be able to now no longer be capable of assist to GT with inside the destiny lower back to Kim Hyun-soo, who receives a few Ventolin in his inhaler for his bronchial allergies from the clinical officer, after which returns to his room. The bully prisoner from the White Tiger gang comes and teases Kim Hyun-soo with the pointy blade containing toothbrush. Luckily Dude GT is looking the scene, who whistles and indicates the bullies to head away, so Kim Hyun-soo became stored this time outdoor the jail. The information reviews approximately the lady murder case. After a while Shin Shae-in got here to the Seoul prosecutor's workplace to inquire approximately the information. The prosecutor tells him that they have determined to prosecute as quickly as viable due to the fact the police agree with that there's an assassin and that there's a deceased, and there are numerous portions of proof pointing to Kim Hyun-soo, but the rapid operation puzzles Shin Jun, and he highlights the fact that there's no purpose for the homicide. However, nobody listens to him, neither the prosecutor nor the police. As for the way to behavior investigations, the police agree with that so long as an inductive confession is introduced. Drug abuse, pressure and attack crimes might be greater ideal to condemn the suspect. After that Shin Jun goes to the residence of Kim Hyun-soo's mother and father and discusses his prices. He desires to charge $70,000 for the case. However, the mother and father of Kim Hyun-soo aren't rich, so Shin Jun decreases the quantity to $50. Announcing that he has to make a residing ultimately, but the mother and father of Kim Hyun-soo took a while from him to consider it. Later Shin Jun comes lower back to the police station to check the contents of the police research that the prosecutor and he believes that the proof is conclusive, and they're positive that Kim Hyun-soo became the only who murdered the woman. Shin Jun attempts to recommend the view that it's far viable that the deceased became killed with the aid of using negligence, but Te says that the deceased became stabbed 13 instances, so it cannot be executed in negligence. To this Shin Jung says that it's far due to this that he believes Kim Hyun-soo isn't always the assassin, as he has no purpose to stab a person so brutally. He says that the police have made Kim Hyun-soo a suspect handiest with the aid of using counting on circumstantial proof. The next day the prosecutor and Tae held a press convention wherein she introduced Kim Hyun-soo because the top suspect with inside the homicide case with inside the metropolis. She even pronounces the photograph of Kim Hyun-soo on the TV, which Kim Hyun-soo additionally sees with inside the jail and will become aggravating. He runs and calls Shin Chae-in to address the problem. However, Shin Chae-in stops him from announcing something, as those calls from the jail are constantly recorded there. Lawyer assures the younger boy that he's going to come to the jail quickly to speak to him. After that Shin Chae-in facts his assertion to Information Channel because the lawyer of Kim Hyun-soo, he says that Kim Hyun-soo is harmless and he's going through all this simply on the premise of circumstantial evidences. Then Shin Jun runs to the jail to assist Kim Hyun-soo deal with the whole thing with inside the detention center because the case has struck the eye of the complete public. It has come to be the talk of the town. A barrister Park Kang has additionally visible the information and thinks to soak up this example. She has her personal regulation corporation and plenty of legal professionals paintings beneath her. She desires to use this example for the advertising and marketing of her law firm, so she appoints her new assistant Seo Soo-in to set up an assembly with the dad and mom of Kim Hyun-soo. After that, once this assembly takes place, Park Kang convinces the dad and mom of Kim Hyun-soo to present the case to her with the aid of announcing that she can be able to do this without spending a dime. Park Kang states that she can be able to unconditionally assist Kim Hyun-soo with inside the lawsuit privately, simply to grow her recognition. Her law firm is already a fame and one with an entire group of legal professionals, so the dad and mom don't have any problems concerning this. Furthermore, they fortuitously hand it over the case to her on the jail. Kim Hyun-soo becomes stuck with the aid of using a organization of prisoners who placed a blind fabric on his head, after which take him to a darkish room there. The negative boy is hanged with the aid of using a rope and is crushed badly with the aid of using all of the prisoners. Even though a shield is witnessing this scene, he would not do something due to the fact it is standard on the jail to intimidate any newcomer at that location. It enables the already gifted citizens to have a feel of superiority over the others. In the meantime, Shin Junan investigates the crime scene once more and takes pictures of the matter's gift. He then buys a few garments and different stuff for Kim Hyun-soo and visits him with inside the jail. He offers that stuff to Hyun-soo there and additionally offers him a few playing cards which have a few cash to shop for matters with inside the jail. The Kim Han-soo offers the horrific information to his ex-lawyer that his dad and mom have signed the case with barrister Park Mi-kang. Even though Kim Han-soo failed to need this, he couldn't say something earlier than his dad and mom made the selection. After hearing all this, Shin Junan nonetheless offers that stuff to Kim Han-soo which he offered for him, displaying a totally type gesture. This incident makes Shin Junan suppose that his case is being robbed, and it additionally makes him greater involved approximately Kim Han-soo's case. While Kim Han-soo returns to his mobile he's known as with the aid of using Doji to a mystery location in which a few prisoners are kneeling in the front of him. One of these prisoners furnished the medicine with inside the detention center. Understanding that this commercial enterprise become absolutely owned through Doji and nobody may want to site visitors' capsules in preference to him. Additionally, Doji is aware of that Kim Han-soo has visible that individual with the medicine, and that's why he's there to become aware of the drug trafficker amongst all of the captives. But Kim Han-soo keeps pronouncing that he has now no longer visible everybody due to the fact he is aware of that the individual could die right here if he named him. Doji asks Kim Han-soo to examine them once more and become aware of the perpetrator. However, Kim Han-soo says that that individual isn't always to be heard. The later at night time, Kim Han-soo is already in hassle because of his instances in jail and cannot sleep in his mobile. Unexpectedly he sees that certainly considered one among his cellmates has dedicated the unthinkable. He become already an aggravating affected person and couldn't endure difficult instances of the detention center. Seeing all this, Kim Han-soo additionally receives a panic assault and he begins evolved strolling from the jail. The guards suppose that he desires to break out from the middle so that they seize him and beat him lots. After that he's thrown into the seclusion promote for a while. On there, different hand prosecutor is discussing the case with crew chief Park Sang-beom, who thinks that it's going to take 1/2 of a month for the identity to be completed. It's why he desires to put off the research time for this prosecutor. He goes to behavior Ray polygraph on Kim Hyun, and sure he has a trick to make the suspect aggravating and get the end result of her personal desire. And if Kim Hyun-soo refuses the polygraph, it will likely be useful to the trial towards him. She offers the entire plan to Park Sang-beom the subsequent morning, and he carried out for a polygraph for Kim Han-soo's case as proof, and he asks Park Sang-beom to influence Kim Hyun-soo to carry out a polygraph whilst Kim Han-soo involves the interrogation room, and he first verbally intimidates him and states that she can be able to prosecute him for violence and murder. Nevertheless, Kim Hyun-soo denies that he recollects whatever this declaration is greater favorable for the prosecutor than the declaration that Kim Han-soo made in advance that he did not kill everybody. Component Park Sang-beom additionally informs Shin Junan approximately the polygraph take a look at, which makes him concerned. He tells Park Sang-beom that he's now no longer the lawyer of Kim Han-soo. However, he nevertheless uses the relationship of his ex-spouse, who's a forensic health practitioner, on the middle, and Shin Jung-gun reaches the region in which the take a look at goes to be performed. Then again, Park Mi-kang is likewise knowledgeable approximately the take a look at and sends her assistant to wait it at the moment. However, she is absolutely naive. Previous to the polygraph check, Park, pronouncing BM, intentionally asks him to look Miss Hang Yuka's frame with inside the morgue, inflicting Kim Hyun-soo's health to range, and does now no longer permit him to take any medicines associated with his bronchial allergies too, pronouncing that it is now no longer permissible to take any medicine earlier than the check. Soo-in attempts to persuade Kim Han-soo that he have to now no longer take this check. However, Kim Han-soo doesn't pay attention to her, even though the polygraph does now no longer have any criminal advantages. Kim Kim Han-soo consents to say his innocence in the course of the polygraph check. Too many questions are requested, approximately the content material of the case, which makes the circumstance of Kim Han-soo worse. Additionally, his inhaler is located in the front of him and he isn't allowed to inhale it till the check concludes. That is additionally some other component in worsening her circumstance. Shin Junan has additionally come to the scene and discovers that is a rip-off and refuses to retain the polygraph check at the spot. He publications see Soo-in to copy what he says precisely and cancels this check. Being Kim Han-soo lawyer Shin Jung-in claims that no person is permitted to undergo this check, which calls for a few type of medicine. Whilst Kim Han-soo returns to the jail, he's once more bullied with the aid of using Park Duk. This time Do takes Kim Han-soo to his room and offers him a e-book to study. He needs Kim Han-soo to discover ways to survive with inside the jail. The next day, whilst there may be the following listening to of the trial of Kim Han-soo, Do-ji offers him a spectacle to put on. Even as going outdoor, Kim Han-soo does similar to Do-ji requested at the day of Hong, changed into cremation. Shin Junan additionally involves the ceremonial venue to study all of those who come to take part with inside the sacrifice. He recollects that Honghae had a few drugs with inside the room from her Instagram. He additionally reveals that Honghae has been traveling their rehabilitation middle with inside the preceding days. Whilst he involves the health facility, Shin Junan asks the physician approximately prescribing Fendi to Honghae that's a prescriptive drug and a narcotic. Those forms of drug prescriptions are signed for up to 3 years. The physician accepts that he has been prescribing those pills to Honghae even after those pills had been protected with inside the national drug blacklist. This factor makes the physician responsible. However, Shin Junan makes use of this to blackmail the physician into giving him the preceding 3 years scientific data of Honghae. The physician additionally learns that there may be a roommate of Honghae who's nevertheless in contact with the rehabilitation middle with inside. The subsequent listening to Park Kang attempts to get bail for Kim Han-soo, pronouncing that he's being bullied on the detention middle punishment of the guards which they gave Kim Han-soo whilst he attempted to escape from the middle. Even though Kim Han-soo turned into not fleeing, he turned into simply having a panic assault. However, there may be no such aspect which could show this. Additionally, Park Kang will be indignant at Kim Han-soo for hiding such statistics from her. Ultimately, the Choose didn't permit any bail for the suspect and Kim Han-soo nevertheless needed to live with inside the detention center. Later, Shin Junan sells Honghae's 3-year clinical facts to Park Kin's assistant Seo So-jin for $100. Returned in jail, Kim Han-soo is bullied with the aid of using Park Duk once more. This time Park Duk offers a reduce on the arm of Kim Han-soo, which in a while is stitched with the aid of using Do-ji in his room. In the meantime, Seo So-in relays the clinical facts of Hong Park Mi-k, who is aware of that such statistics might be very useful for her with inside the case. After you have the statistics, Park Mi-k right away meets with T to give an explanation for the case. Park Kang claims that Kim Han-soo neither pleads responsible nor has direct proof towards him or may be a cause for killing the younger lady that night. Even the antipsychotic tablets had been furnished to him with the aid of using the sufferer. They argue that with inside the Maple Women's case in 2012 and the later Uan Sauna incident in 2017, each had been sentenced to demise with the aid of using negligence and given 8 years in jail. Why is Kim Han-soo sentenced to existence imprisonment? The two have sufficient time to barter the viable sentence of Kim Han-soo and ultimately they each comply with imprisonment fine numerous years. The situation is that Kim Han-soo pleads responsible to his crime, after which he can be sentenced to 10 years for negligent demise. This situation does not experience good. As Kim Han-soo stated from the begin that he did not anything incorrect, so why need to he pass for 8 years in jail? But in penalty transactions, such unlawful offers are best proposed if no key proof is discovered or no responsible plea is made. If their prosecution refuses, the prosecutor typically needs heavier consequences. Park Kang tells the entire state of affairs to the defendant and strongly recommends that Kim Han-soo need to be given those situations. She claims that Kim Han-soo might get out of the jail inside to 3 years if he confirmed a model behavior with inside the detention center. Later Shin Junan additionally got here to go to Kim Han-soo and gave his opinion in this depend. He does not need Kim Han-soo to settle so without problems for the crime which he did not do because it can be the quit of his existence. Then ultimately Kim Han-soo listens to Shin Junan advise gestion and states with inside the courtroom docket that he does now no longer plead responsible. This shocks prosecutor In T and additionally angers Park Mkang as it's like an insult for her all at once. Park Mkang refuses to protect Kim Han-soo anymore and fingers the case over to see Soo Ji-in again on the jail. Park Duik asks Kim Han-soo to get him 3 packs of cigarettes by some means. Kim Han-soo requests for the cigarettes from Do Gte and succeeds in getting packs. However, whilst Kim Han-soo meets with Park Duik with cigarette packs rather than 3, the bully receives irritated at him and beats him a lot. Day after today Kim Han-soo receives extra money from his mother and father and buys every other cigarette percent for Park Duik. However, it's useless as Park Do-un well once more bullies the harmless younger boy or even burns his hand mercilessly. Thankfully DG reaches there on time and saves Kim Han-soo. He then takes the younger boy to the infirmary and receives him dealt with. After that DG captures Park Duck to punish him for his deeds in the front of Kim Han-soo. Do GT burns Park Do-un well's hand with boiling water. He additionally threatens him now no longer to tease Kim Han-soo once more outdoor the jail. Soo-in is absolutely naive and nonetheless desires to paintings at the case of Kim Hyun-soo, so she involves paintings with Shin Jung-un in protection. She desires to reopen the case of Kim Hyun-soo with inside the jury trial and permit the residents participate in it. Tomorrow Shin Junan visits Kim Han-soo and we could him recognize his in addition plans for the case, but it'd take approximately 3 to 4 months to finish the jury trial, and for that time frame Kim Han-soo must live with inside the detention center whilst he comes as much as listen all of the scene. He once more advises Kim Han-soo to discover ways to continue to exist with inside the jail. Dooji controls the penal complex with one hand and enables Kim Han-soo solve issues with inside the jail, and additionally in his lifestyles outdoor. DG tells Kim Han-soo the entirety he is aware of approximately his own circle of relatives. Kim Han-soo's sister is transferred to every other faculty due to her involvement in a violent school case, and his father's taxi continues to be detained on the countrywide Sikh department. Later that day Dooji additionally asks for a choose from Kim Han-soo in go back for all of the matters Dooji has accomplished for him. Kim Han-soo became first given a painkiller, after which his shoulder is dislocated. After that he's transported through the detention center government to the health facility to get his shoulder constant. Quickly Kim Han-soo receives a bandage round his shoulder and returns to the detention center. When he goes into the mobilia of DG, he takes to the other bandage on Kim Han-soo's shoulder and sends him returned, pronouncing that his paintings is executed right here. Later at night time DGT and his assistant boil that bandage in warm water and we discovered that the bandage changed into soaked in the medication. Now those tablets are accrued collectively returned and DGT snuffs the drug interior him in a while. In the meantime Shin Junan once more contacts his ex-spouse and asks her a desire. He takes her to the crime scene and desires her to study it so one can get a few clues out of it that can assist with inside the case. However, Park Sang-beom is mapping the path of Kim Han-soo, which he took it that night time. He tests all of the CCTV cameras of that path and accumulates extra evidences so the date for the jury trial listening to is about, and Shin Jun-hun makes Kim Han-soo get dressed extra presentable in courtroom docket. At the start the prosecutor offers her arguments, pronouncing that a younger woman changed into brutally killed with the aid of using stabbing her 13 instances. Additionally there are 117 portions of proof in opposition to suspect Kim Han-soo. This time she needs lifestyles imprisonment for Kim Han-soo due to the fact she is irritated at him for ruining the address Park Kim in advance, wherein he refused to plead responsible in the front of the courtroom docket. After that Shin Junan stands up and indicates the pics of Kim Han-soo from his university lifestyles. He says that Kim Hyun-soo has a Very easy proceeding document, and additionally does not have a reason to kill Hongo. He's simply being dragged into being there. Assassin with the circumstantial proof after that a medical doctor is referred to as because the witness who explains the nature of the stab wounds determined at the lifeless frame there are 133 stab wounds at the frame and additionally a minor reduce at the hand of Kim Han-soo. That is idea to be because of the scission of the knife with the backbone which triggered the spill of their knife from his hand. However, Shin Jung-un proves a lot of these statements incorrect because the minor reduce at the hand of Kim Han-soo changed into because of the knife sport that he performed with the sufferer in advance. Additionally, though he indicates a report proving Han-soo changed into a left even as all of the stab wounds had been the movements of a right past man or woman. After that, the police officer referred to as a witness who arrested Kim Han-soo that night time, she tells the courtroom docket that Kim Han-soo changed into in a panic state and changed into driving rashly whilst she first noticed him. However, she is likewise responsible of now no longer checking the alcohol popularity of Hyun-soo immediately. Additionally, she took a detour from her unique path to the crime scene even as transporting Kim Han-soo to the police station. Then the officials referred to as witnesses from whom Han-soo requested if the lady became useless. The prosecutor is taking the sentence of Kim Hyun-soo as an affirmation of his crime. However, Hyun-soo became absolutely concerned approximately the victim and desired to understand if some way she lived while the pictures of the sprint cam of the automobile of those law enforcement officials is played at the display. The courtroom docket leans stated absolutely those law enforcement officials themselves took the case very casually. They even counted the stab wounds as 13, primarily based totally at the wide variety of the lottery price tag. This proves every other blunder from the police aspect. Then the importance of the antique college in which Kim Han-soo studied. As soon as is referred to as a witness, he tells the courtroom docket that Kim Han-soo became expelled from his university because of combating with a boy on the campus. However, while Si Soo-jing digs deeper into the case asking similarly questions from Kim Han-soo approximately the incident, we discovered that a classmate made a musing of Kim Han-soo's father for being a taxi driving force operating for a totally low salary. Kim Han-soo couldn't inform their management approximately this bullying due to the fact he did not need to permit his father listen those arguments, so he fought with the boy himself. Later, Shin Jun-han indicates the image of a few end result at the aspect desk of the mattress in Hung-go's room. He asks Kim Hyun-soo if he recollects the knife gift with those end result because it became now no longer located with inside the proof. The only knife which became located became with Kim Hyun-soo in his jacket. Shin Jun-an additionally asks approximately the roommate of Hong Kak-kway and the drug she became taking. However, Kim Hyun-soo would not understand something approximately all this. Additionally, he would not keep in mind something from that night time because of the impact of medicine on his thoughts. Later we see Shin Jun-an privately investigating Yeon H-jan's affairs, who became the roommate of Honga. She were residing with Honga. However, they each had a quarrel only a week after the demise of Honga. It is why that they'd now no longer visible every different for a while and were now no longer residing collectively. Now Yooneo Jn has became her hair into a very special appearance, which may be a signal that she desires to disguise her preceding identification from the verbal exchange with Yeoneo Jong. Shin Jun-an trains a person named MGN who appears to be a dealer of medicine for the ladies via a mystery audio recording. He discovers that MGN had a quarrel with YH Jong per week earlier than Honk became deaf. They each are in a dating. However, the lady has a few doubts approximately Gij as he slept with Honga once. It is why they were quarreling. All three of them have emotional entanglements which may be the motive for killing Honga. However, nonetheless there may be no proof that would keep Kim Han-soo, and he claims that he isn't always the killer. Shin Jun-an then requested Si Soo-in to acquire all of the CCTV photos of Kim Han-soo course that night time. Perhaps this can assist them with inside the case. In the meantime, on the detention center, a police officer comes as much as behavior to entire look for the cells of Kim Hyun-soo and Do-ji, as he has learned approximately the drug trafficking that Do-ji did the usage of Kim Han-soo. He is aware of that the bandage used for Kim Han-soo's shoulder became soaked in the medicine. That's why he attempts to intimidate Do-ji. Really, he additionally wishes to address Dude G and opens up for a few cash. However, Dude G has higher connections than him. He makes a call from his superiors which compels the police officer to go away. Dude G untouched on the identical time one agent became interrogating Kim Han-soo whilst looking to get to assertion towards DG. However, Kim Han-soo stayed organization and failed to reveal whatever. Later this gesture is favored with the aid of using Dude G, as he became now no longer wandering Kim Han-soo so tight-lipped as a present. Dite gives him a Mobile Telesil smartphone and asks him to touch his own circle of relatives if he wishes. Outdoor Shin Junan assessments the using monitor and reveals that once Kim Hyun-soo and Honggae have been on the Fuel-in station, they have been accompanied with the aid of using guy. As all of the manner that person is Lia, who's a transport guy and in reality has a records of pressure attack. Additionally, he accompanied Honggae and Kim Hyun in shape to the Han River whilst Shin Junan and Seo Soo-jin visits the transport corporation to interrogate this guy. They arrive to realize that he has already left the task. In truth, he became struck off from the task because of many court cases, which include one from Honggae whilst he went there for a transport. His proper purpose became now no longer a transport task, however, to locate people for his different dirty commercial enterprise. After that, Shin Junan some way receives to the modern region of Leeksaho and reaches there to invite a few questions from him. However, the guy behaves very badly with the lawyer or even attempts to kill him with the aid of using throwing an awl at Shin Junan. Thankfully, Shin Junan dodges the assault in time and saves his existence with inside. The meantime, a police officer reaches out to whom the lawyer has already given a tip. The police officer there arrests Lia there. Subsequent day, at some point of the trial, Kim Han-soo cannot pay attention to Park Sang-bum's confession as he's submerged in his own mind. Kim Han-soo even began out yelling in courtroom docket that he became now no longer responsible and that he became being falsely convicted. Seeing this as an impossibility, he's persuaded with the aid of using in to visit the witness stand and be wondered on level. Kim Hyun-soo agrees despite the fact that Seo Soo-jin became asking him if it became now no longer the proper choice to pair his intellectual fitness with inside the witness container. The sharp questions at some stage in the method make Kim Han-soo not able to rise up on his personal factor of view. In accordance to prosecutor in Kim Han-soo, he didn't need to shield himself from lacking the possibility to sleep with a beautiful younger woman. It truly is why he went together along with her to her domestic, after which even took capsules and alcohol ale. Even though all this stuff are true, the man a prosecutor and he affords those information makes Kim Han-soo a wrongdoer with inside the case. Additionally, there have been several possibilities for Kim Han-soo to name the police that night time. However, he failed to accomplish that. Even if he became with inside the police station alongside with the weapon of homicide, it even looks as if he desires to make Kim Han-soo blurt out the crime he has now no longer devoted. Kim Han-soo is puzzled to the factor wherein he can't refute, so he sheds tears and panic and is not able to stand the repeated inquiries. Similarly, that is additionally a poor point towards him. Once more after the trial, Seo Soo-in packs her stuff and is visible leaving for some place. She is disappointed with herself for letting Kim Hyun-soo visit the witness container, which distorted their complete case. Additionally, Kim Han-soo acts very uncommon after getting back from the trial. Shin Junan attempts to consolation him, announcing that although he had now no longer been there on the crime scene, the end result could have been the equal. Kim Hyun-soo says that during his reminiscence Hong Gi-w's hands have been twitching. That means that she became alive at that point and he need to have stored her as opposed to going for walks from the scene. However, Shin Junan explains that it became rigor mortis twitching, which takes place in each useless frame. After a while her lungs have been pierced through knife and he or she died immediately. It became simply her frame's reflex after dying, later bored to death with the whole lot. Kim Han-soo makes a decision to stay in jail to discover an outlet for catharsis and seeks refuge with DGA. Even though the bullies nevertheless tease him, he attempts now no longer to pay a good deal interest to them. Sooner or later Park Do-sik steals the Telesil smartphone. Kim Han-soo became talented through DG. This makes Kim Han-soo irritated and he assaults Park Do-ik to get his Telesil smartphone lower back. That is the primary time the younger guy is displaying some braveness. However, he once more receives meat eaten up and can't get his Telecel smartphone lower back quickly. All of the prisoners commenced fending off him and no person desired to take a seat down with him even with inside the mess corridor. His personal cellmate became fending off him, so Kim Hyun-soo is going to meet D once more and asks for his assist. Do narrates his personal tale wherein he became additionally falsely convicted and dispatched to jail to stay for a lifetime. The occasions with inside the jail transformed him into this gift persona. However, he doesn't need the identical for Kim Han-soo. He desires the younger guy to muster up a few braveness and begin dealing with all of the demanding situations bravely. It's the simplest manner to continue to exist with inside the jail. Doogie offers him a e-book to read and a cigarette to smoke. Additionally, Doogie will accompany him anywhere anymore. Kim Han-soo is taking over the fashion of his new buddy, and he has additionally begun out energy education. After a few days of tough exercise, he's higher mentally and bodily. However, one night time whilst he calls at his domestic to speak to his sister, he hears that they're having loads of hassle of their lifestyles because of him. Additionally, his sister asks him if he virtually did not do that crime or they're simply offending him falsely. This shatters the pleasure of Kim Hyun-soo of speaking to his own circle of relatives lower back in the detention center. Park Do-il once more confronts Kim Han-soo and offers him a assignment, this time to satisfy him by myself, as he desires a truthful and square. Among the two, DG has a grin on his face seeing this, as he is aware of that Kim Han-soo is lots more potent this time and he'll defeat Park Do. Kim Han-soo accepts the challenge and cuts his hair to alternate his investigator brutal one. He then is going to the vicinity of the combat in which Park Do-ik is already ready. Kim Hyun-soo turns the lighting fixtures off and beats him loads. Ultimately, he has a threat to kill his enemy. However, he does not visit such extremes, which leaves him injured out of doors. The detention center officer Park Sang-beam wickedly go away the police station, questioning that he cannot be the perpetrator they're looking for. This makes Shin Joon-han irritated. On the police branch the next day, Lee comes to courtroom docket for his assertion, and it comes out that he became following Hong Gwad at night time due to the fact he desired to rent her for his illicit commercial enterprise. Even though it is a criminal offense, police did now no longer interrogate him in this be counted, but he has no relation to the homicide of Hong, the spouse of Shin Joon, and Hong Jenu additionally comes with inside there witness container at some point of the very last hearings of the case. She famous the records she has proven at the same time as running. In this case, the sufferer had 13 stab wounds and the injuries had been prepared in a particular order. 8 Smiles concluded that their wrongdoer ought to be right exceeded at the same time as Kim Han-soo is left-handed. That's inconsistent with the crime scene. Additionally, the reduced wound at the hand of Kim Hyun-soo became now no longer because of the stabbing of the sufferer. However, it became the end result of the knife. Video games. There had been 8 objects with inside the prop set at the same time as the actual range ought to be 9. Additionally, one knife became lacking, which changed into gift on the aspect desk of the mattress, with end result this lacking knife might be the homicide weapon. Hong Jeno argues that the police research is just too biased, which makes the general public jury rethink the verdict. Prosecutor and he then comes up with the connection among Hong Jinya and Shin Young-han and asks why she is inquisitive about the case. Hong Jinya tells the courtroom docket that she has no emotions for Shin Joon anymore, and that's why she were given a divorce from him. She is inquisitive about the case due to the fact the opposite forensic officer did many incorrect matters and tried to mold the case simply to make Kim Han-soo the perpetrator, which is incorrect. If the officers aren't locating enough proof to help their stance on a case, then they need to try to locate greater proof instead of molding the present ones to show an harmless character. Because the perpetrator on the detention center Kim Hyun-soo receives a tattoo from Doogie on his arm which says that if there's a doubt it need to be taken into consideration as a manner to show one harmless. After that, Kim Han-soo asks Doogie if he truly thinks he has now no longer killed that female. What if he truly killed the female and now is simply performing to be harmless? DG replies that it does not be counted to him if Kim Hyun-soo killed a person or now no longer. The following day, with inside the detention center, Park Do-ik brings all of the participants of the White Tiger gang to take revenge on Kim Hyun-soo Han-soo for beating him. They're going to reduce one hand of Kim Han-soo, however Do-ji comes there in time. He slaps Park Doo-ik, pronouncing that they each fought pretty and squarely. Now he's not able to bear the disrespect of the defeat of a younger boy. Pronouncing this, he is taking Kim Han-soo with him and leaves from there. Out of doors, he advises Kim Han-soo that he need to be greater cautious of his lower back any longer, as thugs like Park Doo-ik used to assault from the lower back. Tomorrow on their trial, Shin Joon-han asks the victim's stepfather and learns approximately Hong changed into coverage cash, which changed into loads their stepfather implemented for an coverage declare of up to 10 million at the identical day of the loss of life of Hong. Additionally, the house is bought inside 5 days of the incident, which may be an illustration that the stepfather might be the only who killed Hong for her cash. However, the stepfather additionally gives an alibi on the time of the homicide Hong-ka stepfather changed into with his female friend, so it removes all of the fees in opposition to him. Then they summoned the witness Wai-sun Han, whose automobile had been hit that night time. At that point, his domestic changed into one Kim Fa-fa from Hong house. However, he parked his automobile subsequent to her residence to relaxation. Shin Joon-han additionally famous that Wai-sun seems with inside the CCTV pictures close to Hong changed into residence always for 2 or 3 days, even as much as every week. Perhaps he changed into making plans for this homicide, but Wai-sun famous that he changed into following Hong roommate Yun Oh-jong due to the fact he had a way down on her. Yun Oh-jong additionally confirms this. This means that Wai-sun isn't to assassin. Now the case is getting more difficult and more difficult for Shin Joon-han, so with inside the subsequent trial, eventually he summoned the witness Park Sang-beom. Shin Joon-han asks him for the duration of the scene filming. The inhaler of Kim Han-soo may be visible with inside the photographs, however it isn't indexed in the proof listing. There need to be 9 objects at the proof listing, however he handiest stated 8. The lacking element is the inhaler. Listening to this, Park Sang-beom admits to giving it to Kim Han-soo for use. Shin Jung-gun believes that that is an unlawful act intentionally prompted via way of means of the group chief. It's an evidence forgery executed via way of means of the police that can suggest that they should have solid different matters to installation Kim Han-soo with the purpose to close the case speedy. Then with inside the prosecution's very last declaration, they argue at many elements display Kim Han-soo's guilt, like he fled from the crime scene and did now no longer name the police. At crucial moments he had a pointy knife in his ownership and the victim's blood changed into on him all around the frame. Prosecutor he needs the very best punishment, which is the dying penalty for Kim Han-soo. She says that each one the dialogue of Shin Joon-han weighs not anything in opposition to the proof. This is pointing closer to Kim Han-soo because the killer at the very last day of the listening to DG offers a gift to Kim Han-soo and hopes that he'll by no means are seeking for Kim once more. With inside the detention center at that day, Shin Joon-han is having some pores and skin problems, which makes him indignant at the same time as making ready for the very last feedback at the case. With inside the courtroom docket, Shin Joon-han tells the jury that he's below intense strain and suffers from atopic dermatitis. He is likewise referred to as a third-grade legal professional who usually takes minor instances, having taken over 365 instances in a 12 months with 2 decades of enjoy, primarily based totally in this considerable enjoy. He argues that Kim Han-soo did not dedicate the crime, however made the error of using a taxi and accepting pills from a odd lady that day. The prosecution's case is primarily based totally handiest on circumstantial proof, and the weapon that immediately harmed Hong has now no longer been determined. Even Park Sang-beom, the investigator idea Kim Han-soo changed into the suspect from the begin and molded the research toward his stance. However, his phrases don't have any manner once more in opposition to all of the statistics and proof. Ultimately the decide dominated that the suspicion of the crime outweighed the statistics in choose of Kim, so he sentences Kim Han-soo to existence imprisonment. Kim Han-soo once more reaches the penitentiary and begins evolved residing his existence. The prosecutor and T receives promoted and Park Sang-bam receives his retirement with right ceremonial greetings with inside the detention center. DG is now considering Kim Hyun's suit to take over the matters after him. They may be now greater than buddies, however sooner or later after they each are sitting with inside the floor. Park Duik comes from at the back of and offers a reduce at the neck of Doo-ji because of heavy blood loss. Doo-ji dies instantaneous. He desired to mention something to Kim Han-soo at that point, however he couldn't prevail. The guards have been additionally busy beating Park Do-sik in place of taking Doo-ji for clinical aid. Now Kim Han-soo changed into once more by myself with inside the penitentiary. However, in accordance to the recommendation of Doo-ji, he has to continue to exist there. Alternatively, Shin Jun-an is nonetheless involved. Approximately Kim Han-soo and his operating at the case. One night time he discovers that Yan Hun's digital digicam includes a mystery pictograph, and through hazard he pulls it out from the police proof field. The pictograph famous that Hongaka were traveling Dr. Park Chanel on the psychology medical institution for the rehabilitation. After in addition research it is showed that Park Chan-yeol is the actual assassin. He and Hong-ga were having an extramarital affair, and due to the fact Hong-ga desired to interrupt it off or inform his spouse, he killed her out of resentment. Shin Jun-han takes the proof to Park Sang-beam and asks him to do something. Park Sang-beam is retired now, so he says that he cannot do something now. However, Shin Jun-an leaves the proof, pronouncing that he's going to need to do something in any other case. The case can be reopened, and then Park Sang-beam could additionally be convicted responsible. So Park Sang-beam takes the proof filed to the prosecutor and asks her to seize the actual wrongdoer this time and mend their mistake. Ultimately the police cleared Kim Han-soo's call and acquitted him after numerous days. Shin Jun-an visits Kim Han-soo with inside the penitentiary and tells him approximately the actual wrongdoer. However, it seems like the existence from in the soul of Kim Hyun-soo has been snatched away. He is alive, however, like a lifeless guy with inside the out-of-doors global. That is because of the reality that the prosecutor desired to shut the case speedy for her promoting, and the group chief desired to shut the case speedy earlier than his retirement. There has been only Shin Jun-an who believed in Kim Han-soo's innocence.